Thank you so much for joining tonight. Welcome, good evening, wherever you might be. I'm so excited to get started. If you happen to watch this later on a replay, and if you have any questions, you want to think through something, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm so excited to dive in with you today. Welcome to the Leadership Accelerator webinar. First and foremost, I want to congratulate you on taking the first step in investing your time, your energy, and taking the first steps towards leadership. Whether you're an aspiring, emerging, or first-time leader, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to dissect and give you a step-by-step strategy that you can immediately implement and start your journey to leadership and start to become a more empowering leader. So, quick 60-second background on who I am. If you're new to Career Meets World, welcome. I'm Edward Gorbis. I'm the CEO and founder of Career Meets World. I'm a former senior sales director at WeWork, and I've shifted my career from civil engineering to project management to sales leadership. And now I'm hyper focused and committed on helping aspiring leaders like yourself live a more empowering, live a more compassionate, and more impactful life, and help you step into your full leadership potential. So that's why I'm super excited and grateful that you're dedicating your evening and spending time tonight to learn about your leadership skills and learn how to have a colossal breakthrough in your mindset, your goals, and your human interactions. So, enough about me. Let's shift gears and share with you what we're going to discuss, what you can expect, what you're going to experience. Because I'm not going to give you an agenda. I'm going to give you a GPS system for the next 30, 40, 50 minutes and show you what you're going to learn and take away tonight. So, first and foremost, I very quickly want to align on who you are. Who do we have in the room tonight? We're going to do that in just a second. We're going to have a powerful conversation to help empower you, help you walk away with an understanding about why mindset matters and why some of the most successful leaders continuously invest in upgrading their human operating system, and why, as an early leader, investing your time and mindset and helps you determine the leadership skills and the life you want to lead. Second, I'll share with you what some of the most successful leaders do to open up any door they want in their life by operating from a powerful state of being. So they can achieve the goals that they want and they can access whoever they desire. And finally, we're going to dive in and really help you articulate your leadership narrative, your leadership belief. All right. So if you're excited, ready to jump in, I'm going to invite you to jump into the chat really quick and just put in your favorite emoji. All right, let's move on from there. So look, I want to make sure I have a good pulse on who we have in the room tonight. So again, using the chat feature, I want to invite you and just let me know. Are you currently looking to become a leader, or are you currently a first-time leader? I want to get a quick pulse on who we have in the room. Awesome. So it looks like we have a pretty good mix of people who are either first-time leaders or looking to step into leadership. I'm going to make sure that we tailor the conversation in a couple of different ways so that way it appeals to everyone. If you have any specific questions, again, feel free to ask me at the end. I'm here to engage, here to teach, here to learn as well. So at the end, if you have any questions, just let me know. So now that we have a good pulse of who's in the room, let's dive into mindset and really unpack why it matters so much, more than arguably anything when it comes to leadership. So as we start to introduce this conversation around mindset, I'd like to welcome you to take a moment and think about the most impactful and memorable leaders or managers that you've ever had in your life, in your career. It could be a current, it could be a former manager, someone a few levels above you. It could be a leader at a different company. It could be a leader in your current community, a sports coach, a minister, a rabbi. It could be your parents. Think of who those leaders are. And I'd like to invite you again in a moment or two, once you've processed who these people are, write out who they are in the chat box. And I'd love to know who you think are some of the most successful leaders that you've come across in your life. Very kind of you, Tina. Juan, I love it. Henry Kissinger. Awesome, Nicole. Sydney Sloan, Karen Steele. I love it. We've all come across so many different successful leaders. And one of the things that successful leaders do is they invest their energy in the things that matter. So if you take away just one thing from tonight, or remember just one specific thing, is that 80% of our success is predicated on our mindset. And 20% is simply by doing and taking action itself. So you might be someone who's already been a leader or work with a leader or have been a leader in a different part of your life. And I have to tell you this, that none of us have ever been taught how to think, how our minds truly work. The K through 12 system does not invest in this type of curriculum, into our mindset. In fact, I personally was fortunate to take an AP psychology class back in high school, long time ago. But at that point, we learned how our brains work, but we never did the inner work inside of ourselves to unpack our beliefs, our thoughts, our reality of the world. And so most people live their life operating only through their subconscious. And in fact, neuroscientists all over the world have determined that 95% of our brain is formed within the first 7 years of our lives. So that means the majority of the actions, or in fact, reactions, are a byproduct of the belief systems that we formed when we were extremely young. So my goal today is to surface this notion and help you process it and give you a few easy to implement steps to rewire the neurosynaptic connections in your mind so you can start to form a new belief system and a new way of thinking, a new confidence, a new direction, and the ability to step into your full leadership potential without letting anything, and I literally mean anything, distract you from becoming the best possible leader. Now, wouldn't that feel nice? Wouldn't it feel nice to have this powerful innate energy, purpose, decision-making ability to land the leadership roles that you want and deserve, and subsequently earn more money and build the life that you actually want? So if it's really about finding a way to overcome all the unconscious distractions and disruptions that are taking place that you might not even want or be aware of, and get you reconnected to the reason why you even want to be a manager, a leader, a director, a VP, or potentially even the CEO of your own company. So some of the leaders that you mentioned and that you put in the chat just a moment ago, and they probably all have a couple tendencies that are in common. They all demonstrate openness, compassion, ambition, drive, inspiration, motivation. They set intention with purpose. And that's what makes a great leader. And it's their mindset that enables them to consistently show up with these consistent behaviors. They don't take a day off from working on their mindset. I can assure you of that. And they're constantly rewiring what they believe. and therefore how they actually show up in the world. So I want to dive in and break this down for you so that you're in alignment with what you believe and how you want to operate from a high energy place and allow you to be more intentional, more compassionate, more ambitious, and more motivational as you step into your leadership journey. So to do that, we're going to dive even deeper on mindset. Before we go there, I just want to make sure, are there any questions? If you have any, feel free to ask them in the chat room, here to answer and support and reinforce anything. All right, let's keep moving forward. So if you're someone that is aspiring or determined to become a first-time leader, I know we have a lot of first-time leaders in the room, then I want you to sit with the idea and belief that leadership is not about schmoozing or rubbing elbows with the right people. It's about showing up in the right way in the world and conveying to your people your ability, your beliefs in a meaningful way. So you might be thinking, well, here's an entire menu of all the reasons why I can't step into leadership, or I haven't been selected for leadership, or I'm not thriving as a leader. I completely get it because I've been there myself before. When I came out of college, and I'll share with you a very raw story. When I came out of college, I knew and believed that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I knew I would inevitably step into management. I knew I wanted a higher salary, but for a long time, I was passed on promotions at the companies I was working at, and I had applied to leadership positions at so many other organizations, and I didn't get them over and over and over again, and it stung. And I thought that by getting an MBA, that would help, and that wasn't the answer. So I thought about hitting send again to 200 more companies and see if that was the answer. It wasn't. So I started to get a little bit depressed back in 2016 because I had no idea what I needed to do anymore to actually step into my leadership potential. And it was only after talking with my friends, my family, my parents at the time that they encouraged me to hire a coach. Because I knew that if I actually took the steps to hire somebody and invest the dollars to really help me break through whatever was going on up here, that I could finally figure out how to step into my full leadership potential. And it made all the difference. And it made all the difference because my coach and I spoke about one specific thing, and it was my belief system. And oftentimes we talk about this belief system as the voice in our head. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. But as we go through life, what's actually happening is that our brain is constantly just giving us its opinion. And what's fascinating, if anyone's ever read The Eight Noble Truths by Buddha, he had this incredibly powerful quote. And he said that your thoughts are not your thoughts. And when we just start to follow that opinion in our brain without questioning it, it puts us in a limited state. And so what's happened is that you're literally experiencing life through the lens of these beliefs. And they've constructed a matrix, which is the way that we perceive life. And there's a part of our brain that's actually called the reticular activating system. And that is the lens through which we perceive life. And so what it decides is actually what information comes in and what information gets filtered out. Because there's so much sensory information going on at the same time, we'd go crazy if we tried to ingest it all at once. And so that our brain narrows down that field of experience into a very narrow band. And that band is based on what you believe. So you're always going to find evidence in the real physical world for the things that you're going to believe. And your brain is going to filter out and find evidence for the things you don't believe. And this is why, for example, if you decided all of a sudden that you wanted to buy, let's say, a red Tesla, you're going to start seeing red Teslas everywhere. what you've done is actually enrolled your brain in finding evidence of something that's important to you, right? A belief system that you have, which is that car is the car that you want. And as I went through my own personal journey to discover my belief system that was driving my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, and the results that I didn't want, it's only at that point that I actually had a complete breakthrough. And this is why now I'm so committed to teaching you and everyone here tonight and so many aspiring leaders globally to help them right their mindset, their belief system. Because I want you to remember that 80% of your success is predicated on mindset. So with that being said, I have a very special announcement. And that's every experience you have in your life is directly correlated to your belief system. You're going to hear me repeat this over and over again. And it's important because if you don't understand the way that you operate, there's no way that you can tweak your internal systems. And the fact of the matter is, when we're stuck in any area of our life or we're not living into unlimited possibilities, it's because we're viewing that area of our life through the constraints and the construct of limiting beliefs. So we're literally looking at life and we're ignoring the opportunities and the possibilities that are out there. Our thoughts are not aligned and congruent with what we actually want to accomplish. So we're putting ourselves in a terrible emotional state. And we're actually not bringing the resourcefulness where we needed most in our life. And it's all because for 20, 30, maybe 40 years ago, you came to a conclusion before you were ever fully conscious. And as I mentioned before, 95% of our thoughts have been developed over the course of the first 7 years of our lives. So for example, if when you were 5 years old, you weren't invited to a friend's birthday party, that sits with you. If your teachers scolded you in front of the classroom while you boldly stood up there and tried to speak, that's going to sit with you. Or if your parents forgot to pick you up from kindergarten or from 5th grade or soccer practice, that's also going to sit with you. And what's happening is that we constantly live this conclusion over and over and over again. And the beauty of all this is that we can actually change all of it simply by changing our belief system. And yes, it requires a tremendous amount of work, but it can be done. And I assure you that the most successful leaders have gone through these types of exercises before. And I want to break this down even further for you and really help you understand how beliefs play into everything we do in our lives. And you're going to start to see this out in the real world. And you're going to see this through the lens of other people, how their beliefs are impacting their ultimate decisions and the actions that they're taking. So I'm going to take a sip of water. And before we dive into this, I want to see if there's any questions. I know Chris has just asked, what process do you usually go through to rewire your brain day to day? Chris, great question. I'm definitely going to go through that in a lot more detail just now. I'll also share some examples with you. If there's any other questions, happy to answer them. Awesome. Let's get into it. So again, why is this so important? Why is it so important for us to identify our beliefs? And the answer is because our beliefs predict and produce our destiny. And you've probably heard this in a lot of different formats, on a fortune cookie, maybe on Instagram. But I actually want to break this down for you through psychology and apply the science behind it. So whatever it is you believe produces the ultimate results in your life. Whatever it is you believe actually produces the results in your life. And the reason for this is because there's a function of our brain, the human operating system, called the 5 primary drivers. And I'm going to summarize all of this for you right now, and I'm going to give you an example afterwards, a real life example of how this actually works and plays out. And Chris, hopefully that answers your question. But the 5 primary drivers look a little bit something like this. So again, as you can see, it obviously starts with beliefs. So whatever it is that we believe is going to create or produce the thoughts that are in perfect alignment with what we actually believe are going to produce the thoughts that we want, that we believe, and how we actually experience everything in our minds, right? So our beliefs dictate our thoughts, and they're in perfect correlation with what we believe about an experience. And this produces our ultimate thoughts. So your thoughts are going to produce these feelings. So you're literally going to now experience that thought. And what's interesting is Gandhi had this profound quote, and he basically said, "A man is but a product of his thoughts, what he thinks he becomes, and the becoming is the feeling." So the embodying that thought, we can actually study the brain and see that every single time we have a thought, our brain releases a very specific electrical pattern. And that pattern produces specific chemicals in the body, and you experience that thought as a feeling. And if you look at what happens after the feeling, it always produces an action. Sometimes that action is an inaction or being still, but your feelings dictate the quality of the action that you're going to take in your life. And your action ultimately yields your results. And those results ultimately reinforce our beliefs. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask, are you with me? And if you have any questions. Awesome. So let's keep moving. Let's kind of go deeper on this. I want to share with you a story. Looks like there's a question, and let's get to that real quick. So Matt asks, how do you look at past mistake, errors, and emotional traumas and lead ahead? How do you change your beliefs that are so deeply rooted? So great question, both Matt and Mark. I'm going to share with you a personal story right now, and then I'm actually going to shift gears into a framework that helps you unpack a lot of those traumas that we experienced when we were super young, between the ages of 0 and 7. So really, really powerful questions. I'm going to share with you a framework about how we get through that and how to do it consistently. So first, I want to share with you a story about how I felt when I was super young. And I reflected on this when I started to go through this type of work. And basically, I knew as I reflected through a process of visualization, which I'll explain in a second, but I was never picked as team captain on the playground. I also remember that I lost the vote to become class president in the first grade. So what these experiences created was a belief system that I am not worthy of being a leader. And it's 100% not true. But what my brain did is programmed and conditioned to tell me that I will never be a leader. So these limiting beliefs drive defeating thoughts, yielding negative and deflating feelings that led to unimpactful action, that led to the results that I never wanted. So when I started to finally understand this through a lot of work with my coach, I finally figured out a new belief system, and we'll talk about how to go through this framework. But I figured out the new belief system that I wanted to operate through that finally created the beliefs, the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, and the results that I actually wanted. So we're going to kind of walk you through an exercise that you can implement right now, tomorrow, the next day, and for the rest of your life to continuously and habitually rewire a lot of these kind of neurosynaptic connections in your brain. I know if this is new to you, it's definitely a lot to digest at once. We're going to continue to go deeper on it, but this is instrumental as you step into leadership, as your first time leader, that we continuously go through this type of work, because this is quite literally not only how we become better human beings, but how we become more impactful leaders, how we live a more prosperous life, how we are aligned to what we actually want to accomplish in this world. That is the entire purpose of figuring out our belief system. So I'm going to walk you through an exercise. And again, I'll be transparent with my experiences. But basically, if you have a pen and paper, if you want to screenshot this, if you want to take a picture, feel free to do so. Super basic, very rudimentary. But what I'm going to ask you to do, and we're going to give you a few minutes to kind of go through this. Again, it's a very personal exercise, so I completely recognize and empathize with that. But what I'm going to ask you to do, at least for yourself, and this is a continuous exercise, and I'll explain how it works continually, is in one column, write down your limiting beliefs, whatever they are. Be honest with yourself. Nobody needs to know, nobody needs to see, but write down your limiting beliefs. In the next column, I want you to write down new empowering decisions. Our beliefs are our decisions, so write a new empowering decision that is different from the limiting belief of what you actually want in your life. Remember that we have the power to rewire our brain. So for now, just write down your new empowering decision. And the next step to help you understand that you can actually live through this belief is we're going to find evidence in your current life, in your current experience as a human being that support this new empowering decision. So before I ask you to do that for a minute or two on your own, I'm going to share with you. I literally found my notebook from years ago. You probably can't read this, but I went through the same exercise. There's 3 columns, and I'm going to share with you one of my limiting beliefs. And I did so earlier, but I'm going to expand how I tweaked it and how I've been able to live a more fulfilling life. And I'll explain exactly how this works. So I alluded to this earlier, but one of my limiting beliefs was that I would never be successful. And yes, there's a lot of work that goes into it and through figuring out exactly why that was. And it has to do a lot through my childhood and my immigration process. Separate story. If you're curious, again, open about it, feel free to reach out and ask me. But my limiting belief was that I will never be successful. So I changed this to a new empowering decision where I actually said, my success is inevitable. My success is inevitable, right? So now I quickly had to find evidence to support this new empowering decision. And what I started to do is reflect on all of the moments in my life where I was either A, successful, or even more so, and what's more empowering is when people told me that they loved working with me, they offered me new promotions, new projects, new clients, and definitely gave me more responsibility, and they supported this belief system. So on a daily basis, I've been consistently practicing this where I wake up and there's more to the practice and we'll go dive deeper into it. But basically, I've been going through this and rewiring my brain by telling myself this is my new belief system. You're never going to fully retract all of your limiting beliefs, but by doing this work continuously, you're able to more quickly, more efficiently snap yourself out of different moments by understanding your new belief system. So I'll pause there and I'm going to give you a minute or two. You're welcome to kind of go through this exercise. I want to make sure you go through it right now, even if you don't choose to populate anything in the chat box. I think it's hyper important to think about this as this is fresh. So I'll give you a moment and I'll just pause. All right. So I trust that this exercise will be empowering. I trust that you are going to commit to yourself to working through this, to go through the exercise. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk you through it. Happy to share more about my experiences kind of going through this. We're actually going to go even deeper in just a moment about how limiting beliefs actually change the course of our life and change our ability to be a successful leader. But before we do that, I always believe in reinforcing everything that we learn. So remember, our belief system drives our thoughts drive our feelings drive our actions or inactions or reactions that ultimately drive the results that reinforce our beliefs. So hold on to that. You can take a quick picture snapshot of this if you want. Again, I'm going to share this out later as a replay. For now, I want you to have this sink in and hold on to this because we're going to continue and build on it. So we're going to talk about people and how this relates to management, to leadership. We're going to take everything in that we just learned about our belief systems and how we understand it and how to apply these new beliefs to operate more effectively as a leader, how to surround ourselves with successful people and cultivate meaningful relationships with all of the people that we want so that we can be put in the best possible light and land us the roles and salaries that we actually desire. And to do that, I want to do two things over the next couple of minutes is really help you understand how most people operate and how successful people operate, how successful leaders operate. So we're going to go through this model right now. And basically, I'll be very transparent. I had one of my coaches share this with me. I've adopted and adapted this model just a little bit. And basically, what we're going to see is an inverted triangle. And if we take what we've learned about limiting beliefs, what this triangle starts out with and how most people operate, and through my observation and experiences in life, I believe about 95 to 98% of people go through life this way. So most people have, unfortunately, not because they've done anything wrong, but unfortunately, they've just never learned how impactful and powerful our beliefs are in driving what we want in life. So most people are operating through a state of limiting beliefs. And once they're operating through limiting beliefs, they're operating through a low state of energy, right? So imagine you're waking up in the morning, you have to give a presentation, you start to realize like, oh my God, I like overslept my alarm clock, I still haven't eaten breakfast. And you're telling yourself all the reasons why the presentation isn't going to go well. Probably hearing that from me right now, you're already feeling a little bit kind of low energy and in a state of fear. That's how most people wake up on a day-to-day basis, no matter what they need to do. So what happens is when they're operating from a low state of energy, they don't have a lot of clarity. They're not clear on what they actually want to accomplish that day, that week, that month, that year, and then years turn into decades. And that's how most people live life. And it's all because when we don't have clarity and we're not operating through this high energy state, we go through analysis paralysis, right? We've all kind of experienced it before and we know exactly when those moments were. And the reality is, most of the time, nothing bad happens through that moment, and certainly nothing good comes out of it. And the reason nothing good comes out of it is because when we're going through all of these moments of asking us so many questions, we start to operate through a place of fear. When we're operating through a place of fear, it leads to a certain type of action, or what I like to call reaction. We're literally reacting to everything happening in our lives through our subconscious, through all the experiences that we had very early on in our lives. This is how most people operate. So I want to go through and quite literally flip this upside down and tell you how successful people operate. So what successful people do is once they've gone through this exercise of figuring out what their limiting beliefs are, what their new empowering beliefs are, and find the supporting evidence that they need to support their new empowered belief, they're finally starting to operate from a place of neutrality and high energy, and they're starting to create better decisions. And these decisions drive high energy, they provide better clarity, and that clarity actually allows you to ask one or two very specific questions. There's no more analysis paralysis. You're operating from a high energy state, which gives you the clarity and the focus to ask yourself the right questions. And those questions ultimately lead to a place of courage or confidence or joy or happiness. And that courage allows you to drive high impactful actions that are aligned and congruent with the life that you actually want to live. This all stems from belief systems. So again, a lot to take in. What I want to do is basically give you an example of a client I used to work with and how she went through this type of process. And let's just summarize it for you, right? On the left, we see how most people operate. We just went through that whole model. Most people operate from a state of limiting beliefs. And the successful people in the world operate from a place of clear focus. They're aligned with their empowering beliefs, and they drive through high energy. So one of my clients that I was working with, she was based in LA. She worked at a company that was headquartered in New York, and she was determined to become a manager. She knew she wanted to become a leader. Her and I were having conversations around the steps that she probably needed to take. And one day she gives me a call and a little bit in tears, but almost kind of overwhelmed, right? Operating from that low energy state, from that limiting belief. And I could tell something was off. So I asked her what's going on. And she said, look, two things. One, I just don't think I can do this. Like, there's no way anyone's going to pick me to be a leader. There's no way I'm going to get promoted being in a remote office. And I certainly don't have the visibility and insight into senior leadership that's based all the way out in New York. I said, okay, why do you feel this way? And she said, well, and to be very clear, she knew this model. So I had taught her this model already, and she was aware of the framework. So I said, let's think of the framework and let's think through what are the new empowering decisions that you've built for yourself in your life. And she said, my success is inevitable. She borrowed what I had also created. And she knew that she was going to climb as high as possible in the corporate ladder and become a VP. At one point, she had aspirations to become a CEO. And I said, okay, great. So you know you're going to get there. What supporting evidence do you have? And she said, well, look, I have all these emails and I have all this praise from different leaders at different parts of the company. My clients love me. My peers love me. I said, great. So people love you. People are supportive. People are giving you praise. And I said, what can you do differently now? And she said, well, I can get in front of the people in New York and start to prove to them that I'm worthy of being a leader. I said, okay, that's fine. What do you need to do to get there? She said, I clearly have to get permission to spend more time in New York. I said, okay, get that permission. She had to ask one question, and it changed everything for her, because she basically got the opportunity and the approval from her local leadership team to travel to New York as much as she needed, and then ultimately build and foster the relationships with the senior leaders. And within 3 months, she got the promotion that she wanted. She got the higher salary that she couldn't even imagine. She was extremely happy. And it may seem simplistic, and she had gone through a lot of work. It just took a moment to snap her back into a state of high energy and her new empowering decisions in order for her to take the action that she actually wanted to, right? Not reacting to the fear that was inside of her due to the limiting beliefs. When we take the time to actually unpack all of this, when we take the time and give ourselves the opportunity, the permission to go through the exercise that I previously showed you, which is What are your limiting beliefs? What are your new empowering beliefs? And what supporting evidence you have? You're going to start to rewire your brain. And you're going to start to see that there are moments when you wake up with low energy, you quickly go into an exercise of figuring out what are your new empowering decisions, and you're going to snap into a high energy state. It has been proven over and over and over again by every successful person and leader that you want to emulate and embody in your life. So we're going to take everything we just learned about belief systems, about successful people, and apply this and give you a takeaway from tonight, which is developing your leadership narrative and developing a leadership belief, right? Earlier, you had brought up some people in the chat box about some of the most successful leaders that you've encountered and are surrounded with in your life. A lot of them embody openness, ambition, compassion, motivation, inspiration. They provide direction, intention. And although this is what makes a great leader, our goal is to help you believe and embody and operate from a high energy state that allows you to be more compassionate, more ambitious, more motivational, and drive teams in the right direction. So again, we're going to take everything we just learned and we're going to go through a very simple exercise together and help you walk away with your personal leadership belief. So let's go through this. So we're going to take everything we learn and I want you to walk away with one powerful leadership belief. And we're going to do this through 6 simple words. We're going to do this exercise together. And you're probably wondering why 6 words, and obviously it's short and concise, but I want to share with you a story of where this kind of evangelized, where this came from. It definitely didn't come from me. I adopted this, but I know it's powerful. I know it's valuable, and it's going to help you feel more confident as you go through your leadership journey. So at one point, Ernest Hemingway, famous author, was challenged and asked to write a simple story, not a leadership belief, but a story in 6 words. And most people thought that this was impossible. And the next day, literally the next day, he came out with "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." Yes, it might sound a little bit strange and weird, but that's a full story. It's 6 words, it's super concise, it articulates exactly what happened. And as time progressed, people kind of adopted this 6-word methodology. And then President John F. Kennedy at the time came out with an adoption of this statement. And he said, "A great man is 1 sentence," or woman, but a great man is 1 sentence. So let's remind ourselves that what we believe is what we are, and our destiny is determined by our beliefs, and our success is determined by our beliefs. So I want to help you work through this exercise and create a new empowering belief tonight that will help guide you through your leadership philosophy and how you show up in the world as a leader. So to do this, again, pen, paper, notepad, phone, whatever you choose, consider these 3 questions. And I'm going to have you go through this exercise for about 2 or 3 minutes. But basically, consider these 3 questions. So question number 1, what gets me up in the morning? Question number 2, how can I help? Question number 3, what is my influence? So these are 3 questions that will help you figure out what your leadership belief is. And again, I will share with you what is my leadership belief and how I've embodied it through my life. I will also give you kind of another example is that you can certainly adopt this with your team, whether you are a leader, whether you're on a team right now, and figure out how do you get your team to operate through this 6-word belief system and figuring out challenges or even solving for opportunities in the workplace. So I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes, take some time, Write down what you want your leadership belief to be. Again, it doesn't need to be set in stone. Go through the three questions. The questions again are, what gets me up in the morning? How can I help? And what is my influence? 2 to 3 minutes. And when you're ready, and if you're comfortable with it, feel free to share it in the chat box. All right, so if you've come up with a statement and are brave enough to share, feel free to drop it in the chat box and we'll kind of read through it. Happy to give you any pointers. I'm going to welcome that, and it's okay if you're not ready to share as well. Nicole, awesome. I love this. Love what I do, be authentic, and deliver ROI. That's spot on. It's a powerful statement. Well done. All right. So, Nicole, I commend you for being brave and for sharing that. For everyone else, continue to work on it. Continue to think through these questions. Again, reach out if you have any questions. Happy to help you work through it. What I want to say is that summing up your leadership philosophy in 6 words may not produce this eureka moment or the sudden clarity. But what the exercise does is it challenges you to think about what work means to you, what leadership means to you, and how you use it to influence and project who you are into the world. So, one of my favorite leadership beliefs, and then I'll share mine, but one of mine that I've slowly adopted into my life is big idea, profound thoughts, truthful moment. And this is somebody that meant a great deal to me, and they were all about transparency. So that is what leadership meant to them. And my leadership philosophy, my leadership belief, my narrative is that the product of relationships is leadership. The product of relationships is leadership. That is everything I do in my life. Anyone who knows me, they know I value relationships more than anything. And I deeply believe that when we cultivate deep and meaningful and powerful and inspiring relationships, we create the fabric for what I perceive to be leadership. So, with that said, I want to quickly recap everything we discussed over the last 45, 50 minutes, because I believe that reinforcing new ideas strengthens our understanding of everything that we learn and also creates a new belief system. So we know that our minds are malleable and that 95% of all of our beliefs are formed through our subconscious in the first 7 years of our lives. So these beliefs ultimately drive the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, and the results, and then ultimately reinforce those beliefs. And it's when we go through all of this powerful work of rewiring all the neurosynaptic connections in our brain, by uncovering the belief system and creating new beliefs. With consistent supporting evidence, we can start to visualize and experience the results that we desire. And that's what most successful people do. That's what most successful leaders do. And remember that mindset is 80% your success, and 20% of it is simply taking action. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm definitely going to answer some more questions in just a moment. But I do have a very special announcement for everyone, and you're going to be the first ones hearing about it, is that I'm super excited to dive deeper on this, and I'm launching the Leadership Accelerator Program, which is a 12-week leadership program that will provide you an entire framework about how to land your next leadership role and the one after that. It's a 12-week group coaching program that provides you both the access to me, a private community with ambitious individuals, and all the resources and tools that will help you land your next leadership role and earn you 10 to 25% more in income. We're going to dive super deep on mindset, much deeper than we have tonight. We're going to peel back the entire onion and make sure that you're not only operating from a higher state of energy, but I'm going to give you the confidence to make sure that you can teach other people, that you can teach other people throughout your company, throughout your teams, and make sure that you're fully intertwined with mindset and how to work through your belief system. We're going to spend 4 weeks on people management, understanding how people interact, how people engage, how to work one-on-one, how to work one-to-many, how to work up, down throughout your organizations, and how to foster deep and meaningful connections with people outside your organization. And lastly, we're going to spend the last 4 weeks on strategies and systems and really give you the tools and the confidence to operate and create a highly impactful team and help you go through your leadership journey with complete confidence. So the program starts the second week of January. It's officially open. There are literally only 30 spots in the entire program. And for everyone joining tonight, I'm feeling grateful. I think everyone who knows me knows I love Thanksgiving. So out of the bottom of my heart, I'm super excited that you've joined tonight. You've invested in yourself by spending time and learning some powerful systems and tools that everyone who joined tonight, I will send you a separate code and you're going to get $100 off the entire program. That's it. I'm going to let you know that going into 2021, especially after everything we've all personally experienced in 2020, 2021 is all about committing to yourself, investing in yourself, your mindset, and your personal leadership development journey. Thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. I'm going to hang out for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you want to ask questions, feel free to take yourself off mute. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask in the chat box as well. Thank you so much.